The following story is about a real homicide investigation with graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised. At 4:30 in the morning, the detective gets a call to respond in Southwest Atlanta. The detective shows up to the crime scene and he finds his victim laying face down in the grass area. As I look closer, on one of the victim's legs, his white jeans that he's wearing, there's a bloody full handprint in blood on the victim's leg, and that's crazy. Hey Murder Mind fans, welcome back. And if you're new to the series, welcome in. If you're enjoying this content on YouTube, make sure you click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on all notifications so you never miss an upload. Alternatively, if you're not watching this and happen to be listening on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you click the follow button so you never miss an episode. And as a reminder, brand new episodes drop every Monday. Now let's get started. In the last case, an NYPD detective reached out to me for help and I solved a cold case homicide. And the case we're talking about today also starts with a cop reaching out and asking for assistance. But this case couldn't be more different, and it was way more personal. So it's August 17th, 2015, a typical day. I show up for work, I got a cup of coffee in my hand. First thing I normally do, I check my emails. Right away, I see an email from my homicide sergeant wanting me to look at this cold case from way back in 1988. So this is 2015. At that point, I'm exclusively working cold cases. What a lot of people don't know about the City of Atlanta cold case files, we went back as far as we can go, and we had about 1,400 homicides that are open going way back to like right after Prohibition. So for a sergeant to send us an email in the homicide squad is not unusual. We would get dropped 2 or 3 cold cases a month to see if we can breathe some life into them. This case was no different. So like most emails, it's just a quick 2-liner about what this case is about. And I could see in the email, 1988, this is about a man shot in Zone 3 section of our city. And this is 1988. Crime was rampant, homicides were through the roof. Nothing like it was in 2015. As I continued to read this email from my homicide sergeant, I learned that the reason why this case has come to the surface is that a family member called and wanted someone to take another look at this cold case. As I read further, I'm a little shocked because I learned the family member is actually a police officer who wants us to look at the murder of this victim because he happens to be his father. This particular police officer was someone who policed actively in the metro area, literally 5 minutes from APD headquarters. So I knew I had to get onto this case quickly. And the first thing I really need to do, I need to reach out to this victim's son, the actual police officer that called, who wants us to look at his father's murder. So I reach out to the victim's son and introduce myself and tell him I'm the cold case detective assigned to his father's murder. Well, he introduces himself as Antonio, and right away I can tell this guy had an easiness about him. He had this demeanor that was very welcoming and warm, and I knew right away that we were going to hit it off. Up until this point in my career, this is the very first time that the victim's family member, the person that made the outcry to open up this cold case, was a police officer. So now, typically I pick one member of a family, and that's my conduit to the rest of the family. This happened to be Antonio, who called us for help, who happens to be a police officer, who now is my confidant, is my comrade in this endeavor. He is the person that I'm going to be with throughout this experience, throughout this journey. He and I are almost symbiotic at this point. That's how I roll. I want to make sure that I'm connecting with the right person. And there was no doubt in my mind, Antonio was that guy. 5 minutes into the conversation, I had to stop him. I had to interrupt him because he kept calling me detective. And I said, please call me by my first name. I want to make sure that we have a good relationship going into this case, and I promise you I'm going to keep you updated on everything I'm doing. So he finally agreed. He started calling me by my first name, and we started to build this relationship. What I learned right away was he was so young at the time that his father was killed. He had no information about anything he saw or experienced concerning his father's murder. His father was murdered, so now there's other family members that have to explain to him what happened. So that's where we started. So at this point, I've got to get Antonio to take me along the journey, take me back in time. Antonio goes on to tell me that he was 8 years old when his father was murdered. He's at a summer camp, and all of a sudden, he's pulled out of camp, brought back to his house, where his mother sits him down and explains to him that his father had been killed. So at that point, that's where I wanted Antonio to start to tell me the story. I wanted to hear exactly what his mother told him, what he heard happen, and any experience he may have had with his father or memories of his dad that may help bring me closer to who may have done this to him. So Antonio tells me that after he got home from camp, they sat him down and his family explained to him that his father was shot and killed during an apparent robbery and dumped on the side of the road. That's all he knew. They never told him anything else after that, and over the years he understood that no one was ever held responsible for his father's murder. So he went through his whole adolescence, his young adult life, and now full adult, and he told me that because of this case, it drove him to want to get into law enforcement. He felt like he had a need to help people, and this experience really formed his idea of becoming a public servant. So now Antonio has gone his entire life, since 8 years old, to the minute that he and I are talking on the phone with unanswered questions about what happened to his father. So talking to Antonio on the phone, I can hear his pain. I can feel it through the phone. I can hear it in his voice. It was real. Antonio explained to me that he had a father, he loved his dad, and at 8 years old, you still have those memories. He remembers the time with his dad, and then all of a sudden, that quick, it's over. In all these years, Antonio is now in his 30s, becomes a police officer, but all of these years, since he was 8 years old, he had unanswered questions. He had the absent father who was murdered. Now has the experience of growing up, trying to become a man without that guidance of his father there to help him. But I could hear in his voice, this was personal. This is a young boy I'm talking to on the phone in a grown man's body. He's talking to me as if his father was killed yesterday. Antonio goes on to tell me that his father's name was Leonard Hill. He was 45 years old at the time of his death. He was a family man, married to his mom. And Antonio is the youngest of 4 who happen to be his step-siblings from his mother's previous marriage. From what Antonio told me, his father was just like any average person, working every day, living a good, clean life, trying to do right by his family. So of course, I want to know from Antonio what he was told or what he knows about his family's knowledge of what happened. Antonio goes right into letting me know that he was away at camp, but his step-siblings happened to be at home during the time that his father was murdered. So I asked Antonio to provide me with all the names of his brothers and sisters and their phone numbers so I can contact them later. So I thank Antonio for his information. There's not much else he can provide at this time. I know I'm gonna have another conversation with him, but right now what I gotta do is I gotta go back in time. I gotta get this 1988 file, I need to open it up, and I gotta see what I'm working with. I need to understand what's available and what direction I'm going in. Right now my mind is racing. I don't even know what I'm gonna see when I open this file, but like every other case, I'm excited because as soon as I open this file, I'll know right away which direction I've got to go. So now, knowing that this case was from 1988, some may think the older the case, the more difficult it may be. That may be true in some respects, but the way I look at it is I love science. I love solving cases with modern technology. So when I look at a case that's from 1988, but law enforcement wasn't testing DNA because those procedures weren't available yet, where fingerprint analysis was in its somewhat infancy and not modernized like it is today, and all of the other technological advances that we have in law enforcement today, I get excited. So when I knew this case was from 1988, I can't wait to get my hands on the evidence. I'm looking forward to seeing what photographs, what evidence, what fibers, what DNA may be present on evidence that was collected 27 years ago. If I can find those things, we may be in the ballpark in solving this case. So I've had cases older than this. I'm not afraid of this 1988 case. In fact, a year earlier, I solved a 1977 murder. So right now, I'm okay with this. I have to pick through it and I have to start making a list of what I can use. Evidence, witnesses, statements, anything I can get my hands on and start rebuilding this investigation, but using modern techniques. That's the key to solving this case. So one of the first things I want to do when I open a cold case is I want to see who the detective was that originally had it. And what I've learned is the older the case, the more difficult it's going to be for me to find them. This was 1988. When I look down and I see the name of the original detective, I didn't know him personally, but I had seen his name on many other cold cases. What I learned from other cold cases that this particular detective had passed away some years earlier. So I knew this was not something I was going to be able to do. But I always want to speak to the lead detective on an original cold case, because although I'm reading everything they did and statements from witnesses, there's nothing better than getting it straight from the horse's mouth. Talking to an original detective on a homicide case is invaluable because there's so much nuance involved in a homicide investigation that doesn't go down on paper. Detectives don't write how they feel when they're speaking to somebody. They write down what they said. Detectives don't document how they feel when they're at a crime scene, but they write down what they saw and what they observed. Those are the tidbits that I want to get from the original detective. Walk me through, how did you feel when you were speaking to this witness? What was your gut telling you? But right now, that's not going to happen because this original detective is unfortunately deceased. So right now, the only thing I can rely on is this great detective's words written on paper. I can only hope that some of the answers I need are buried within this file. So now I have the original homicide file in front of me and I'm paging through it. The first thing I want to do, I want to read the original police report. That's where I'm taking notes on the who, what, when, where. Those are the things I need to know. Where did it happen? What's the address? What time of day it was? Now I flip over to the original detective's report. This is what this detective observed, who he spoke to, and I start reading. It hadn't changed from when this case happened in 1988 to the way we document cases in 2015. It starts with the call. Where did it happen? Why did the detective get the call? And the next entry into the report is the scene. So now I'm reading this original detective's report that literally is painting a picture for me. And in my mind, I can actually see it because I've been on so many crime scenes. In my mind, I see the detective arriving. In my mind, I see the detective getting out of the car, observing the body as I'm reading exactly what he did. This is great because it's almost as if it's a play-by-play commentary of what happened 27 years ago. So as I'm reading the detective's report, I realize it's June 26, 1988 at 4:30 in the morning. The detective gets a call to respond to Formwalt Street at the corner of Rawson and Southwest Atlanta. That's the Mechanicsville neighborhood. I'm very familiar with that neighborhood, even in 2015. Mechanicsville is one of the oldest neighborhoods in Atlanta, established in 1870. The reason it was called Mechanicsville is because the majority of the people that lived in that neighborhood were railway workers. They were actual mechanics that worked on the trains, and the railway lines actually ran through that neighborhood. So that neighborhood was established, it was called Mechanicsville. Over the years since 1870, that neighborhood has changed many times. In 1988, it was crime-ridden, and even in 2015, not much had changed. In 2015, just like 1988, it wasn't uncommon for a multitude of homicides to be occurring in Mechanicsville. The detective shows up to the crime scene and he finds his victim, Leonard Hill, laying face down in the grass area, right on the side of the road. What's interesting, he's got 2 gunshot wounds to the head. They're almost identical, one on each side of this victim's temple, and that's crazy. As I'm reading what the detective wrote and I'm looking at the photograph, what's really matching up is the detective says that he sees the presence of gunpowder residue around the bullet wounds. I can see that in the photograph. The detective also indicates it could have been a close contact wound. When I read that and I start to look at the crime scene photo, I've seen this many times before in my career. At this point, I've been in homicide 15 years, and I know what a press contact wound looks like. This was a straight up execution. This wasn't a random robbery where someone wasn't complying. First shot is to put somebody down. Second shot, that's to ensure that they're dead. I also learned that they determined that the victim was shot with a .38 caliber revolver. That explains why they didn't collect any shell casings. They were able to collect the projectiles from the victim's body, send them to the crime lab, where the crime lab confirmed that both projectiles were fired by the same gun. So I continue to read this file. The original detective indicates the contents, an inventory of what's on the victim. Very standard in homicide investigations. We want to know what a victim has on them. That's called inventory. Do they have a wallet? Do they have jewelry? Do they have cash on them? Are they missing anything? Was this a robbery? What's so interesting, and what kind of blew me away a little bit, is I read this detective's inventory of what's on Leonard Hill's person. He's got a wallet in his pocket. He's got a pack of smokes in his pocket. He's got loose change. But get this, he's got $640 cash in his front pocket. So now I'm thinking back to the conversation I had with Antonio, the victim's son, who said that he was told his entire life that his father was shot and killed and that it was a robbery. But now I'm reading this report and I'm realizing this absolutely wasn't a robbery. This victim has $640 in his pocket. So I'm reading this file and I'm looking at the crime scene photos, and I start to get that feeling that I've gotten so often in so many other cases. Something just isn't right. It's almost like that homicide spidey sense is kicking in. I'm not quite sure what it is, but what I know is I'm just scratching the surface of this. I gotta dig a little deeper. And then something catches my eye. As I'm looking at the crime scene photos, I realize there's no shoes on this victim. Then I go back to the report to see if the shoes were inventory, and I realized the detective indicated there were no shoes with this victim. And as I look closer at the crime scene photos, I look at the victim's socks, and they're pristine. So when I look down and I see that the socks are clean, I'm like, wait a minute. Now, I've had homicides in the past where someone's running from somebody and they run out of their shoes. Well, I'm gonna find dirt and debris on the bottom of their feet, their socks, when we find their body. Not the case here. These socks are clean. This victim didn't walk to this location without shoes on. That's a possibility. If he did and was killed right there, his socks would be dirty with dirt and debris. These socks are not. They're clean and they're pristine. Boom, light bulb goes off. That tells me right there, this victim was dumped. I've had other cases where victims' feet also were pristine. The feet tell a story. Those particular cases, the other ones that I investigated, I was able to determine that those victims as well were killed somewhere else, transported in a vehicle and dumped. So this isn't a theory I'm working on. This is experience. I've been here before and I've seen this before. At this point, I'm sure that victim Leonard Hill was dumped at this site. He was dead when he arrived. That means he was killed somewhere else. He wasn't killed where his body was found. That's the primary crime scene. Where they found his body would be the secondary crime scene. This dump location and threw out like a piece of trash. So whether detectives could determine that back in 1988, I haven't flipped through the entire file yet, but right now, I know something ain't right with this. This stinks. This victim has pristine socks. He was not killed where his body was found. That's where he was dumped. His shoes are missing, his money's in his pocket, he was executed, 2 gunshot wounds to the head. When someone dumps a body, they're trying to create space and time and distance between them and the crime that occurred. And the reason why, 99% of the time, is because the killer is closely connected to the victim. As I continue to look at the crime scene photos and focus on the victim's wounds, especially the area around the victim, he's face down. He's got 2 gunshot wounds, 1 on each side of the head. But what I don't see a lot of blood in the grass. And this is something I've seen before. I would expect to see a lot of blood around this victim's head, and there was none. That married up with the fact that this victim has no shoes, he has pristine feet, there's not debris on his socks, confirms in my mind this victim was killed somewhere else, transported in a vehicle, and dumped at this crime scene. So I'm looking at these photos. I realized that the victim, he's got white denim jeans on. He's got a floral colored shirt on, very casual. It's 1988, it's June, it's hot. It's appropriate clothing for that time of year. As I continue to look at the photograph, I look down and something catches my eye. My spidey senses are really tingling. On one of the victim's legs, his white jeans that he's wearing, there's a bloody full handprint in blood on the victim's leg. What's interesting is the victim himself didn't have any blood on his hand, so I knew right away that handprint was not from the victim. So it had to be one of two people, either the killer's handprint, or if he had an accomplice to help him move the body, that person's handprint. But right away, I knew this is some evidence I may be able to use. At this point in my career, I've never gotten fingerprints off of cloth, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna try. So in my mind, I'm doing the only thing I know how to do. I've got to send this photograph to the people who are experts in fingerprint analysis. It's 2015. Technology is way more advanced than 1988. I send this photograph to the FBI. I ask them to enlarge the photograph of this handprint and praying that they're able to get some usable grooves and patterns from these fingerprints that I may be able to compare to a suspect later. I seal this photograph up in an envelope, mark it as evidence, overnight it to the FBI. I get an immediate email receipt back saying that they received it, and at this point, it's a waiting game. I'm waiting for the FBI to let me know what they can do with this evidence. So right now, I have all these different pieces of evidence that I have to consider. I don't really know what happened. I know that this victim has money in his pocket, so it may not have been a robbery. I have no idea what happened to this victim's shoes. So right now I have to consider all of these things. In homicide, anything's possible. The worst thing I can do right now is get tunnel vision, build a theory around something that I may have to change directions later. So this is the initial stage of reopening a cold case investigation. This is where I have to be very careful. I have to be objective, and I have to open my mind up for any possibilities. Because I've been here so many times where I had a theory and I was going down the road one direction, and literally at the snap of a finger, I'm reversing and going the other direction. So right now, I have a lot of questions that need answers. So one of the most important things in any investigation, a hot homicide or a cold case homicide, someone discovered the body. Someone found the victim. Someone may have reported what happened. In this case, I discovered that this was a 911 call that came into Atlanta police about someone actually happening upon this victim laying in the grass, the person that discovered the body. So I look in the file and I see there's a guy that I'm gonna call Steve Jones, who actually called 911 in 1988 and reported that he found the body. So of course, I wanna speak to Steve Jones if he's still around. Although he called 911 in 1988, it's 27 years later. I don't know exactly who he spoke to in 1988, but 27 years later, there may be information that he's been holding on to, something that he may not have shared with police. So I need to find this guy if he still exists. So I look into the database and I find Steve Jones, the exact Steve Jones who called 911. So next up, it's a call with Steve Jones.
The time is 9:20, call to who found the victim's body back in 1988.
So I called the 911 caller, Steve. I record the call, and as always, we've altered his voice to protect his identity.
Hello?
Hey, can I speak to Mr. Hey, this is Detective Velazquez, Atlanta PD. How are you?
Mark?
Did you ever go by chance?
No?
So I called the number that I have for Steve Jones, but the most important thing is I need to verify this is really him. I want to make sure I'm speaking to the same person that in 1988 called 911.
I don't know if I have the right person, but let me jog your memory for a minute. I work cold case homicides, and I opened up a case from 1988 where a person was found on the side of the road in Mechanicsville. Was that you that found him?
Yeah.
Okay, they put you down as but your name is
Right.
As it turns out, the name in the file was wrong, but I determined through that phone call, I had the right guy.
I've reopened that case. I know it's been many, many years, but I just wanted to ask you a few questions if you have a couple minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so this, if you could, just run, if you can recall, and I know it's like you probably haven't thought about this in years, but if you remember right now, just kind of run it back by me and tell me what you recall about that night.
He tells me that he was in the area in 1988 on that night, about 4-something in the morning.
I was with a friend of mine named
Okay.
and he went to see a female friend of his. I sat in the car and he went upstairs to see her.
And Steve was just simply waiting for him in the car to come back to the car so they could leave.
And then I had to take a piss, so I walked in the woods back there and I saw a body. I thought it was a drunk guy.
Yeah.
And I went over there and said, hey, buddy. And then I kind of looked closer and I saw he had been shot in the head.
Oh, wow.
As I'm listening to Steve tell me this story, in my 15 years so far in homicide, this has never happened. I've never had a person who just decides to go to the bushes to relieve themselves and looks down and happens to find a body. That only happens on TV, dramas. And here I am talking to Steve. This is a real life occurrence of that actually happening.
Okay. Did you touch him at all?
No.
You didn't touch him. Okay. You remember what he was wearing?
I think he had a jail curl.
Okay.
I don't recall what he had on.
Right.
As soon as I saw that, I got in my car, I got in his car, and I drove to the phone booth and I called you guys.
Call 911. Okay.
So I want to ask Steve all the pertinent questions. Did you know the victim? Did you recognize him? Someone you may have seen in the area? No.
Did you see anything else around there? Did you see anybody walking around, driving around, anything? Or when you first arrived, did you hear any gunshots or anything like that?
No, nothing.
Nothing like that.
I don't tell how long that person was in there, over there.
He could have been there for a while. Okay.
It wasn't decomposed or nothing. It like I said, I just saw, gunshot wound to the head, and I was like, wow.
You're like, wait a minute, you didn't expect to see that, right?
Steve didn't hear or see anything other than seeing the victim laying in the bushes. So I thank Steve for his information, and I let him know I may have to call him back later.
Okay, I'll keep you posted. If I do make an arrest on this case, just so you know, what will happen is you'll be notified by the DA's office, and it'll be waived a long time from I make an arrest if it goes to trial to testify, and all you would say is what you saw,
Okay.
what you found that day. So if I do make an arrest in this case, I will definitely call you and let you know so you can be prepared for that, okay?
Okay, that works.
All right, I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Have a great day.
You too.
End of statement, 9:25.
Although I didn't get much from Steve, it's just part of the job. It's something I had to do. I had to talk to the 911 caller to find out exactly what they saw, what they heard, and any other information they may know. It didn't lead to any useful information, but I did what I had to do, and now it's time to move in a different direction. So the 911 call didn't really produce anything fruitful. So as I continue reading the original detective's report, I want to see if he zeroed in on any potential suspects. That's a good place to start in any cold case investigation. Many times I found in cold cases, the original detective developed a suspect and they just didn't get enough information or enough evidence to actually charge them. And that's a good jumping off point for me as a cold case detective to pick it up at. So right now, I'm thumbing through the file to see if the original detective identified any suspects I may be able to zero in on. So I continue digging through the file and I discover the original detective actually identified witnesses, several of them, who all reported hearing gunshots somewhere between 2:45 to 3 a.m. That's important. That's not far in time from when my victim was found. One witness in particular reported to the original detective that after hearing gunshots, she looked out of her window and saw someone from the neighborhood she knows as Mike running from the area and described it like running like a bat out of hell. This is good information. Right now, we've got gunshots going off, we've got a dead body, we got a 911 caller, we got a witness that hears the gunshots and sees someone that she knows as Mike running away from the area. This may be evidence I can use. So right now, my mind is racing. I need to know who Mike is. And more importantly, why is Mike running like a bat out of hell right after someone hears gunshots and actually running from the area? This person, Mike, could be related to this case. I'm continuing to flip through the file looking for information, and I actually see the lead detective identify someone named Michael Flo, aka Mike. This is likely the person that the witness saw running from the area after hearing gunshots. So right now, I need to track down this guy Michael Flo because he's got some explaining to do. So I'm gonna tell you what happens next and all the twists and turns that happens in this crazy case in the next episode. Coming up on The Murder Mind.
What about him in far as being like out there with other women?
Yeah, we got an issue there too.
Now she's just introduced to me a possible motive of why this victim was killed. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please hit the like button and subscribe. And please check me out on other social media platforms, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Lastly, don't forget to come back for the next episode. You won't want to miss it.